the vast majority of causes in the World War II, when the Allies and Axis aircraft were shot down, pilots and their crew generally surrendered, reaching ground, even routinely armed with pistols, and resistance was pointless, as enemy troops or civilians arrive in large numbers, crowds drowned the airman prisoner, exception of the U.S. airman over Japan that was shot and treated reasonably, and had taken prisoners through the course of terms of the convention. Now, the legislation had sent to the prisoner of war camp, but the extraordinary episode of the Battle of Britain in 1940, quick combat, and actually occurred during a bomber crash with British troops sent them to take as prisoners. The Battle of Britain was huge as aerial combat and the summer between Hitler's Luftwaffe and the British Royal Air Support. On Europe of June 1940, with the defeat of France, a large part of the French army, overwhelmed with new German blitzkrieg, and several hundreds of thousands of British and French soldiers successfully evacuated to UK ports and the French ports of Dunkirk and France. Incredible operations of Britain braced herself like a German invasion. The whole popularities of carried out of ministers and Winston Churchill's famous and fight on the beaches and landing grounds. The British was determined not to surrender, and the Germans would remove the war and the first stage of its arrival. Hitler would seize control of the seas and the Britain of the London coast, and the bombings of the RAF has been destroyed. The Spitfires and Hurricane squadrons, heavy bombing attacks were the RAF's airfields in the southern England, almost driving the RAF to the wall, but British eventually got the upper hand and switched focus from airfields to infrastructure targets that gave the RAF some breathing space, and regrouped to the harder German forces began in night attacks of England, soon including the bombing on London. The German bombing squadron, the Kampfhandkontan 77, converted into Junkers 88 in mid-July of 1940, and the September-based aircraft would record in its group most planes lost in a single day of action. On England, the Ju88 was shot down during the disastrous raid on the port city of Cleveland, and the Kent of 18th of September, moving forward to the night of the Blitz, and had launched a part raid of the London and 27 and 26 of December. The bombers of the corner of the story of the crew of the four, non-officer was the pilot under control, the corpse 555, or the Sergeant Kaleven Reichstag, the radio operator and gunner officer Erwin Feinfund, the known relations to Sergeant Himmler, but the gunner Flieger or Private Jacob, after his successful raid over London with the Ju88, has been damaged by anti-aircraft fire midway. It was intercepted around dawn on the 27th of September. Both Hurricanes and number 66 Squadron and Spitfires of number 92 Squadron, incredible fighters, but simply would not blow the German out of the sky. RAF had orders to shoot down new types of German vehicles that they encountered due to intelligence value and the clean most intact airframes and crewmen. The pilot noticed the particular Ju88, and the A1 was one of the newest models of the RAF intelligence wanted the example, and the RAF shot the remaining good engine. The Rule crash-landed the aircraft into a grave in Kent. Now, following the wheels-up crash-landed, the Hounds and its crew were uninjured and quickly armed themselves. The plane's machine guns were still operational, and fresh saddle drums were slapped into place of the MP-44 machine gun pistol, had been carried aboard as self-defense purposes, had also been loaded by the men, checked their pistols, and ordered a defense of the plane in order to give its crew time to destroy all sensitive equipment. They set the demolishment of the charges that would burn out the plane. Among the equipment were the board-top's new secret brass bomb sight computer, which would not fall in British hands. While the Germans hurried to destroy their equipment, they prepared weapons. The British troops were on their way to take them prisoner. Based on the coastal defense's duties near the crash site, most of the men bombing company of the Battalion of London Irish Rifles, the battalion of the local pub that was crashed near, 12 men commanded by a Captain Cuffon set straight away from the approach crashed Ju88. They were met by bursts of machine gun fire and took cover in the open fire. They have lunts and rifles, several minutes of firing carefully. His men have flanked the movement along like close and the 100 yards of the plane. The German plane was waddling in white handkerchief, and the British troops approached, and they were once again fired on by the British tank fire bullet. Now, the aircraft of the Meadowskin has been surrounded and the Germans disarmed. The British located and disarmed a demolition charge that had been set to delay his plane and the enemy. However, the German-speaking British soldier overheard the airmen discussing a second time bomb that they was set to explode after shortly. Eager to clear and save the precious aircraft from destruction, Captain climbed back inside to locate a black metal box. He dragged this out and threw it into a drainage ditch nearby. The plane's new top-secret bomb computer was saved, and invaluable intelligent resource had no hard finding towards the Luftwaffe crew, who taken local pubs and the London Irish treated pine before handing over to military police.